In this lesson, we're going to take everything that we've learned in the last two lessons, in Lesson 7 and in Lesson 8, and we're going to combine them together and simplify and evaluate some expressions. So we're going to take our lesson on product of powers property and our lesson on quotient of powers property and combine them. Okay? Now, the great thing about combining all these exponent properties, and you're going to learn a lot more, but the great thing about it is that it actually doesn't matter what order you do them in. It's not like order of operations where you have to do it in a certain order. So I'm actually going to do this one problem two different ways and show you that you'll still get the same answer no matter what. So I'm going to start out with, if you look at our expression, we've got 3 to the 4th times 3 to the 2nd divided by 3 to the 3rd. So we've got both multiplication and we've got division. For this first example, I'm going to start with the multiplication part, and I'm going to focus on the top half of that fraction. So if you take notice here, we have a 3 as our base number here, and a 3 as our base number here. And then we have multiplication going on. Since I have multiplication and since my bases are the same, I am allowed, sorry about that. I am allowed to combine or to add the exponents together. So I'm going to rewrite the numerator as this fraction. Instead of saying 3 to the 4th times 3 to the 2nd, I'm allowed to add the exponents. So 3 to the power of 4 plus 2. And we all know that 4 plus 2 is 6. So step 1, I simplified the numerator and rewrote it as 3 to the 6th power, and I keep the denominator as 3 to the 3rd power. So what I just did was the product of powers property. But my answer is not completely simplified yet, because now I'm going to use the quotient of powers property. So let me rewrite the problem again. Okay, so first of all, take note, our base number on both of these is a 3. 3 in the numerator, 3 in the denominator. I am dividing because I have that fraction symbol. So because I'm dividing and because my base numbers are the same, I'm allowed to use the quotient of powers property. So I'm going to rewrite, I'm going to rewrite this expression as 3 to the power of 6 minus 3. And I know that 6 minus 3 is 3. So my final answer is going to be 3 to the 3rd power, and that is simplified. I mean, I'm not actually evaluating it. I'm not raising 3 to the 3rd power. I'm leaving it as a power because that's what the direction said. And in that second step, I used the quotient of powers property. Quotient of powers property. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the exact same problem, but this time I'm going to start with the quotient of powers property and then do the product of powers property. And I want to show you that we should end up with the same answer. So if I start with the quotient of powers property, my first step, instead of adding the exponents in the numerator, I'm going to just focus on these two right here, and I'm going to subtract the exponents. 3 to the 4th power divided by 3 to the 3rd power is the same thing as 3 to the 4th minus the 3rd. And I know that 3 to the power of 4 minus 3 is 3 to the 1st power. So now I have 3 to the 1st power times 3 to the 2nd power. I don't have anything in my denominator anymore, unless you want to leave it as a 1, but you don't have to. So that was the quotient of powers property. And then step 2 would be to use the product of powers property. So now I have 3 to the 1st power times 3 to the second power, which is multiplication. So I can use the product of power, the product of powers property, so I can add my exponents. 3 to the power of 1 plus 2, which is 3 to the third power. And if you take a look, we got the exact same answers no matter which way we did it. And it doesn't really matter to me which way you do it first. You can choose what makes the most sense in your brain.